Okay. Hi, Ian. How you going?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks. Thanks for coming on and congratulations on your performance at Rasselbach just over a week ago.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks very much. Yeah, it's I guess about a week and a half now since I stopped running.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, time flies.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you still feeling it? Are you still feeling a bit sore or are you recovered now?
Um, Not too bad. So I've since the weekend I went for like a short walk and then did a bit of a run and had a few kind of easy runs this week. So just yeah, nothing, no big injuries, nothing to worry about. It seems still a little bit more tired than normal, but
Yeah.
that's kind of that's kind of what you expect when you do well, I never did a couple hundred miles before, but certainly on the long races I've done before, like a week to 2 weeks recovery is normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So when did you start running and how did you get into running?
Yeah, so I guess I kind of started my kind of running back in 2015, so 10 years ago now, and it came from for like health reasons. So basically, what happened at the time, so I guess I was in my kind of early 30s at the time. In my head, I was still like fit and active like I was when I was being a teenager, but the reality was a little bit different to that. I was like working behind a desk, commuting a couple of hours every day. We had young kids, so like not doing a lot of exercise, and it kind of hit me because one time I had to chase our dog. Our dog escaped, and I had to chase her for like a mile, and then I was basically like couldn't breathe, got like a chest infection, was like off work for a week,
Wow.
and that was like a wake up call for me.
Yeah.
Um, so then with that kind of lifestyle and work and family commitments, I was like, well, what can I do? I'll just take a pair of trainers and go for a run in my lunch hour. So that was 2015. That was when running started, and then I guess it just kind of spiraled from there.
Yeah, so this run that you did chasing your dog, that actually made you sick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it completely floored me, and I had this like chest infection, on medication, in bed for like best part of a week.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, it was like a huge wake up call for me. I mean, like I'd always been pretty fit and active. Like I did a lot of like outdoor stuff when I was a teenager and a student. Whitewater kayaking was like my main sport, but I did a lot of like hill walking, hiking, stuff like that as well. Um, but I guess by the time I was in my early 30s, I wasn't nearly as fit and active as I would have liked to think I was.
Yeah. So what was the inspiration to start running longer distance and get into the running ultras?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess like from starting off just doing like where I was working, there was like a 1 mile loop around the campus. So I would do that, and then okay, well, like, can I do 2 miles? And then I like found a local group of runners that did like a 4 mile race every month. Um, I guess this was kind of before like park run was a big thing, but this was just like a little local thing. So I'd do that, and then I think in 2016 I signed up for a 10 mile race and did a 10K, but very quickly I was kind of interested in trail running. As I said, I kind of come to running from like an outdoors background rather than from an athletics background.
Hmm.
So like for me, it was natural to want to go like off road and do bigger stuff. Um, and I remember like quite early on, after I started running, seeing a lot of stuff on YouTube, mainly out of like the US with like trail running and ultra running. And so I pretty much jumped like straight from that kind of doing 10 mile half marathon type things straight to ultra. I mean I have done like two road marathons in my life, but that was like it wasn't like a progression. So I think it was in 2018 I did a 50K, fairly kind of mountainous trail race, and that was my first ultra. So basically 3 years from the first time I put on a pair of shoes.
Yeah, yeah, unreal. And is it correct that your first backyard ultra was the Cowshed Backyard Ultra in 2022?
Yeah, that's right. So I'd always been kind of aware of backyards, like from Biggs back in the day. You're hearing about that, and I'd been kind of had my eye on wanting to do one because I was kind of interested by the format. Um, but I think around about sort of 2020, obviously, like, there's a lot of COVID stuff stopping events, and I don't remember when the first one in the UK was, but you know there was some talk about, would there be a backyard in Scotland? I think maybe the Highlander backyard and the Orkney backyard were maybe round about 2021 or something, maybe just before COVID. I don't remember. But anyways, the first one that kind of like fitted into like my schedule and there was the Cowshed, which is, it's in England, but it's in the north of England, so it's maybe a couple of hours drive for us to get to.
Yeah. And what do you remember what your game plan was going into that race as far as tactics and things like that go?
A little bit. I mean, I guess I was pretty unprepared, and I would like to think I know a lot more now. But I was I was kind of aiming for aiming for a kind of laps around about 45 minutes, which for me now I would say is too fast. But I mean, I was a reasonably competent ultra runner at the time, so to hit 45-minute paces for a backyard loop, even one which is the Cowshed is fairly hilly. I think it's maybe like 400, 400 to 500 feet of elevation per loop, and it's all off road. Some of it's quite muddy and stuff as well. So it's not an easy course, but still to hit 45 minutes, is not that difficult, especially in the beginning.
Mm.
But I think the thing that I mean that race I did 27 yards before I binned it, and I think what I found then was because I was going quite fast, I didn't maybe after the 24 hours I started to slow down a little bit, and I immediately kind of like sort of lost my head a little bit. And I was going, okay, I can't keep my pace. So I probably did like 45, 48, 51, and then like pulled the plug when I still had like, 6, 7, 8 minutes. I don't remember the exact time, but certainly had a lot of margin left. But, for me, my race was done and I pulled out at 27 yards.
Yeah. And how did you feel about the result? Were you happy with the 27 at the time?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think I went into it with like to do the 100 miles was like the minimum goal. Because I'd done I can't remember at that time, but certainly probably 5 or 6 100 mile races. So I knew I could do the distance. So that was kind of the first goal. After that, I guess that's another thing I learned. I probably didn't really have any other milestone goals to aim for. So I kind of felt like I'd done the 24. So when it gets a bit hard, then nothing more to push on for, and it's kind of okay to quit. But no, I mean, I think I was happy with 27 for my first backyard, but it definitely left me with lots of things that I'd learned from it, and a bit of an itch to scratch to see if I could go further, because I think I quite quickly realized that, like, why did I stop when I was doing with whatever it was, 6 or 7 minutes left on the clock.
Yeah, sure. So, like, do you remember going home and like thinking about numbers that you thought that might be possible for you in the future?
I don't think I had necessarily had specific kind of distance goals. I mean, at that time, probably that was kind of getting on for the furthest I'd ever really run. I mean, I think I'd done like several 100 milers, sort of like point to point races and stuff. So I didn't really know what I was capable of in terms of distance. But I definitely knew that I could be more efficient. And if I could be more efficient, then that suggests I should be able to go further. And I think in that first race at the Cowshed, if I remember correctly, I came fourth overall. So I think I kind of got a sniff of like, ooh, if I do this right, and I go to the right race, then maybe I could be really at the sharp end.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the things that like drew me to go, right, I need to go and do another one of these.
Yeah, sure. So it sounds like you've really identified pace as an area where that you could tinker with and an area you could improve. But were there any areas of tactics that you identified that you could also um, improve in?
I mean, I think kind of nutrition is one as well. I mean, this is something that I've learned both from doing the backyards and also other races as well.
Mm,
For me, it seems my body likes to just, particularly eat like on my normal circadian rhythm.
mm,
And so this is something I do a lot at the backyards now is, I'll try and eat relatively more at like breakfast time, at lunchtime, at dinner time, and then I kind of and snack in between. Um, but the main thing I found, and I remember this at the cowshed as well, um, if I try and eat a lot of solid food during the night, my body and my guts just try and shut down, and I kind of get really sick. So I remember at cowshed, like standing in the corral and throwing up over the side of the corral, sort of thing. Um, so one of the things I've kind of learned is to listen to my body a bit more, and when it gets dark, when my body wants to go to sleep, at that point I just switch to I'll take just gels. Normally I don't really do gels much during the day. Go to gels at night because I can tolerate that okay, and continuing with like energy drink as well. And that basically gets me through to the morning, and then whatever time, 5, 6, 7 o'clock when the sun comes up, my stomach goes, hang on a minute, I'm hungry again. Where's the real food? And
yeah.
then you can go another day. So that's definitely something that I've learned and seems to work pretty well for me.
Mm. Now you've mentioned that you're running ultra like point to point races as well as backyard ultras. Um, do you have a favorite type? A backyard ultra is your favorite, or do you enjoy all types of ultra running?
I would say like both point to point and backyards are both my favorites, but for different reasons. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to do just one, and I wouldn't want to just do the other. So, but the backyard, for two things. One, I think it's like a really kind of pure format for being competitive, and I'm definitely like a competitive person, either with myself or with others. So the fact that like the 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 purpose, what you're trying to do, is very very clear, and everybody's on the same on the same point, doing the same thing. I think that's really really neat, and the competitive element really kind of speaks to me. But I also really like the community. I'd done many ultras and other trail races and stuff, but really the first time I went to backyards, I met a whole bunch of people who are like now my friends, and I see them at other backyards and other races, and we keep in touch in between. Um, I mean, ultra running is a friendly community sport, but I think backyards even more so. I guess partly because everybody's confined to the same site and stays together every hour.
Yeah.
So those things are for me are like real reasons why I love the backyard. But the other reason that I love ultra running, I like to explore and get out into the countryside, away from civilization, away from other people, up in the hills. And backyards are not that. They're a 4 mile loop format. You don't get the same buzz of exploration. There's no navigation to worry about. So it's a different challenge, and I like that thing on the point to point that you can do some massive journey from 100 plus miles from A to B and see some amazing places. So definitely like them both, but for different reasons.
Yeah, sure. Now, the Sat Champs last year, like some people might know this already, but it would have been extra special for you because you were running in it. Not only you made the team, but you and your wife both made the UK Sat Champs team. So that's got to be a first, I reckon.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so Julie is my wife. She's been running ultras just a few years less than me, but she's really pushed and done some like super long stuff. So I think uh, I would say she's probably done maybe three, four, five races like the 200 plus mile distances. She's done 250-mile races, continuous races, um, and so yeah, we've done a few backyards together. We've done ones where she's crewed me. We've done ones where I've crewed her. And yeah, we both qualified for the UK team. So I did have a brief scan down the lists from all the other countries to see if I could spot any obvious pairings that had the same surname.
Yeah.
But sometimes you can't tell. I think I maybe found. I think there was maybe a father-son combo somewhere else
Right.
that I saw. I might be wrong. And then I think there was some other countries where like certain surnames are really really common, so it's also hard to tell. But maybe we were the only ones. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty cool and quite special. But it was also during the qualification period was pretty tense for us because we both had aspirations to get on the team.
Yeah.
We both felt that we were capable. For me, I qualified via the final silver ticket race. So I was off the bottom of the at-large list. I went to the final silver ticket race. Obviously, there was quite a few other people who had the same idea, so it was reasonably competitive. I was able to win and get that silver ticket. And then I think Julie was she was sitting in the first reserve position, so like in position 16 on the at-large list. And in the end, I think one or two of the people who were offered a place couldn't take it up for one reason or other, so she got bumped up and came into the team. But the funny thing was actually because the silver ticket race I qualified at, which was called the Pig on the Hill backyard, it's it's kind of regarded as pretty much the hardest backyard course in the UK. So actually, I won that with 28 yards. So of all the people on the team, I had the lowest qualifying mileage, even although I was the silver ticket winner. So, and Julie went into it with with a higher distance qualifying mark than me.
I can imagine that backyard ultras would have been a pretty common discussion point in the house leading up to the race, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. And we definitely have like a friendly rivalry going on there. As I said, Julia had a higher PB from me at that time. So she did the Rasselbach backyard in 2024. And I think she did 38 or 39 there. I can't remember exactly. My PB was 37 at the time. So when we were kind of going into the satellite champs on the UK team, we both wanted to push further. I'd hoped that I'd be able to beat her total, and she obviously in the end at the satellite champs she did 48 yards, and I bailed at 37, which was matching my PB but no further. So as I said, she's absolutely an excellent ultra runner in her own right, and we definitely talk a lot. We share strategies. We kind of have this joke that she figures stuff out, and then I like borrow all the good ideas from her as well. So there's definitely an element of that.
I think I saw in one of the results at God's Own Backyard Ultra in 23, the two of you stopped together as like the two last ones standings. Is that right?
Yeah, so it was like a double DNF, and there was no winner because we were like second equal.
Yeah, very good. So when did you make the making the Sat Champs team? When was that a goal? Like, was that a goal from when you started running backyard ultras?
I don't think when I did that first backyard in 2022, I don't think I really had any idea about what the qualification structure looked like. even there's in the UK, there's like even like a smaller championship thing called the Four Nations between Scotland, England, Ireland, Wales, and that first backyard race, there was like the the home nations teams were there, and I had no idea that this was even going on. So, but I suspect like within a couple of races, I kind of dug into the lore, if you like, of the backyard and understood, that there was these there was the bigs and then alternately the satellite championships. Um, so yeah, I don't remember when we kind of decided that we were. I'd have to look back because every year I like on our blog we kind of put a like what's the goals for the year, and I guess I would probably say like in 20 at the end of 2022, beginning of 2023, I was probably thinking about how we could qualify for the championships in 2024.
Yeah. Now, you did mention you did 37 yards at the Sat Champs last year. So, how did that race all pan out, and what stopped you on 37?
Yeah. So basically, so we kind of me and Julie we ran the race pretty much together. So we stuck at this. We have the same kind of pacing ideas. We think that for us aiming at about 53 minutes, 52, 53 minutes, and you're doing a lot of walking to be really efficient in a loop. That seems to work for us. So we kind of ran the race pretty well together. Right up until the point that I dropped. What kind of happened with it? It's something that I've experienced on other races before. I do tend to find going through the small hours of the night, so 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, I really struggle with sleep. Just literally sort of falling asleep on my feet. And at the UK champs, whether it was the adrenaline of being in a championship race or what it was, but I was coming back and shutting my eyes, but just not really getting any rest, like feeling like I was really, really wired. And then that just got worse on the second night as well. So I was really getting to the point where if I was walking, I was like staggering around like a drunk because I was basically falling asleep as soon as I started walking. So I was having to run to try and keep awake, and I just kind of like lost it kind of mentally. I remember one time, in fact, so yeah, during the second night, I was kind of basically Julie was dragging me around. Like if she said run, I was running. If she said walk, I would stagger around and she'd say run again. I was seeing stuff. I mean, I do a bit of hallucinating anyways. That's kind of normal, but I was kind of just losing my mind a bit. And at one point, must have been probably around about maybe like 32, 33 yards, something like that. I was at the point where I'd had enough. I was ready to quit. And in fact, I just about maybe mile 1, 2, I was walking, just thinking I was going to walk it in, sort of thing. And Julie had dropped back. So also on the team was John Stocker, former world record holder, really great backyard guy. So Julie, he was right at the back of the field and taking it easy. Julie dropped back to try and find him, to try and get him to come and talk some sense into me. But by the time she got back, something had sort of clicked in my mind, and I got right. I'm just going to run. Right. So I then started sprinting, and I ran the sort of second half, the final 2 miles of that loop, like 7:30 minutes a mile, sort of thing, like stupidly super fast for that stage in the backyard, with the idea that right, I'm just going to run it in, and I'm going to sleep. And I remember getting back to the, getting down in my camp chair, sleeping bag over my head, with like 15 minutes left on the clock, but just still being completely wired and like not being able to sleep at all. So then, like after that, I guess that sort of gave me a little bit of a kick up the backside, and I had another couple more loops where I was kind of okay and like back in the game. But then again, like the whole sleep deprivation. I just fell apart. So by lap 37, I was just like, right, no, this is it. I'm done. I really can't take this anymore. and it was a bit frustrating because like the next morning, everyone else was still running. Well, not everyone else was still running, but like, 5 or 6 people were still running. Julie was still running. I woke up the next morning with like having had 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and I felt totally fine. Like physically, I could have run a lot longer, but it was really a mental stroke sleep deprivation thing that just it just shot me down, and I couldn't deal with it. So that was my story from the UK champs.
Yeah. The I don't know if you've seen the Backyard Stats website where it profiles every single runner from the Sat Champs as their times on each loop, and it does show you were ultra consistent with your loop times, and then like you did a really fast one, and then you did about three
Yep.
slower ones. So yeah, that story definitely aligns with the times you ran.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was about. Up till that point, we'd been banging out the same pace to within a minute, probably,
Yeah.
really consistent. And that's the same strategy I've kind of tried to use at most backyards. But yeah, as I said, did this one lap where I was about to quit, and then made the decision not to, and sprinted it in. And obviously that was enough to kind of keep me going for a couple of yards. But
Yeah.
uh, if the dawn had only come a few hours later, maybe I'd have made it through into the third day. But at that point, I guess it was probably maybe like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning when I quit. I think something like that. So it's still far enough away from the morning. Because I always find I get a huge boost in the morning. Like I said, like my body wakes up and wants to eat and get going for the next day. I feel really wide awake. So like that last part of the night is like a real, or it has been a real hard point for me, and it was something that I was kind of really keen to try and solve when I came to Rasselbach this year.
Yeah. Now that at the Set Champs, that was run on the Suffolk course, I understand, or the new Suffolk course. It's going to be run later this year. That's a nice and flat course, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, they were kind of using the Satellite Champs race as like a test event on the new course. So it's the first time it had been run there. So it's in Thetford Forest, which it's not far away actually from the original Suffolk course.
Mm.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's not pancake flat, but it's there's nothing that you would consider to be a significant hill on there. I would say. The first mile is gradually downhill, the second mile is gradually uphill, and the last 2 miles are pretty well flat.
Mm.
And it's in a forest park, so it's a mixture of like gravel roads. The first bit is on like an accessible path, so like really really fine gravel. And there's a few bits that are kind of on like kind of grassy bits that could be a little bit muddy. But yeah, I mean I'd say it's pretty much a perfect course for for doing a backyard. So I think that, I mean I haven't been to the original Suffolk backyard, but from people that have been on both, I think the new one, from what I've heard, is as good if not better. So it should produce some long distances, I guess, this year.
Yeah. And now this what happened at the Sat Champs with you? Did you like I guess did you change anything at Rasselbach from what you learned at the Sat Champs?
So I did a couple of things. So basically, I kind of knew that physically I had the legs to get to 200 miles or more, right?
Yeah.
I mean, previously outside of backyards, I'd done a 170-mile race, where it'd taken me about 49 hours. But obviously, you can stop for longer sleeps than you can afford in the backyard. So, but kind of physically, I knew that the 200 miles, 48 hours was something that I should be able to do. So the main thing that I kind of taken away from the Satellite Champs was like, how can I better manage my sleeping and cope with it during the night. So I actually did. I'm not one for doing like massive amounts of training simulation, but I did a 12-hour like overnight shift in the end of January, beginning of February. So it was basically like 12 hours of complete darkness, set up a little aid station in like the front porch of my house, made a 4 mile loop from my front door, and just went out on a Friday night. I think I started at 8 p.m. and finished at 8 a.m. in the morning, with the idea that I was going to experiment a little bit with some different sleep strategies. So I mean, one thing I learned there was, compared to Thetford, where I'd been especially during the nights, kind of really like on the caffeine, which I think contributed to me being totally wired. What I aimed to do at Rasselbach, and actually what I did was, I just stuck to my normal routines, which is like, a little bit of caffeine in the morning, and then go caffeine free for the rest of the day, caffeine free through the night, so that when I came back, even although I was still doing the same timing, like being in at 53 minutes, I could shut my eyes and I would get like 5 minutes of actual sleep.
Mm.
And that worked well for me. I also practiced on that overnight practice run, doing some faster laps and making sure that I could still fall asleep. So that's like, you do a faster lap. But one of the things I learned was, don't run all the way into the corral, like slow down and walk with like maybe a quarter mile to go, so that your heart rate comes down. And then when you sit down, lie down, and you'll get 15 minutes of sleep, you'll drop off. So at Rasselbach, I did 2 of those in the first night. So I would have had, 30 minutes of proper sleep plus some 5-minute naps. And then on the second night, actually, the second night at Rasselbach was quite interesting for me because, I was really worried about it. I was worried it was going to be harder than the first night. The first night went really well. But actually, on the second night, I didn't really have any difficulties staying awake, and at least at the beginning. I remember it was quite weird, actually. Like, there's a section on the Rasselbach course. Most of it is on like wide gravel paths or like forest roads. But there's one section which is like a single track twisty trail through the trees. And I remember that section on the first night, I'd been a little bit sleepy. Your vision goes a little bit, it's dark. You just have your head torch. But on the second night at Rasselbach, I sort of distinctly remember this, like, feeling like I had like HD vision, like everything was really sharp. I was really wide awake. And I'm not sure whether it was just because like I was psyched up for the second night, or because, we were getting that, maybe there was like, I don't know, maybe 20 people left in the race, 15 people left in the race. So I felt like I was getting close to the end. Yeah. But for whatever reason it was, I was like totally on it on the second night. And it wasn't until like about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning on the second night that I really started to get sleepy again. And at that point, I was just like, okay, I'll take a caffeine gel at the start of the lap. I've only got 3 hours till the dawn. And I just went through those last 3 hours of the night on caffeine, and got through to the third morning. Well, yeah, the second whole day, third morning, absolutely fine. So hopefully, I took a few things from the champs race and seemed to crack it at Rasselbach. So
yeah, it sounds like
we'll see at the next one whether I can do it again.
So I know you live in Scotland, and I mean, I believe it's pretty cold in Scotland a lot of the time. So how comfortable were you running in the cold recently at Rasselbach? Because that looks pretty cold.
Yeah, I mean, so the temperatures at Rasselbach were like, I mean, in the UK generally, right, springtime can either be like really, really nice or it can be really cold. And Rasselbach, like the weather was almost ideal, I would say. I mean, it was like probably 10 or 12 degrees during the day, blue skies, sunny. But during the night, the temperature was getting down to just about freezing. So, maybe it'd be nice if it was a few degrees warmer, but at night. But, I'd rather have, freezing conditions at night than have it at like 20 degrees during the day. I would say it's easier to, if you've got the right gear and you're used to it, it's easier to cope with cold than it is to cope with the heat. So, I mean, again, one of the other things I did during that training run at the end of January was, just experimented with some more cold weather gear as well. So at Rasselbach, during the nights, as well as like, a base layer and a top, which I had all day. I just had a jacket over the top. I had some like waterproof, running trousers. I did have other things with me, like I've had, I mean, I wear gloves quite a lot anyways because I have like Raynaud's syndrome, so like poor circulation to your fingers. So I quite often wear gloves even during the day. But I had like some over mittens that I found worked really well. At Rasselbock, I didn't actually need them. Um, so yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, it's not super cold in Scotland. I'd say, like especially where we live, which is basically at sea level.
Mm.
Um, it's not that the temperature can get down to like minus 3, 4, 5 during the winter. Much below that is unusual. Obviously, it's different if you like live inland and further higher elevation. Um, but I mean, I'm fortunate enough I get to travel a little bit with my work, and I'd spent during kind of November, December, and January. I spent some time in Sweden and Finland.
Yeah.
So I'd actually had a chance to do a little run in Finland when it was minus 20, where I had like full winter gear on, and I've got like thermal socks and stuff like that that I can use if I need to. But so I did have those in my kit bag for Rasselbock, but it wasn't necessary.
Yeah. What's the coldest backyard ultra that you've actually run in?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, I don't remember any of them being like super cold
Yeah.
compared to Rasselbock. I mean, I've done so God's Own Backyard. Well, they have a May edition and a November edition, so I've done the November edition twice. So those ones, it gets down to probably a few degrees above freezing. I don't think I've ever really won one where it's been super cold.
Right. Okay. So Rasselbock might have been the coldest one.
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah, I mean, it was like yeah, I say I didn't I didn't have a thermometer, but there was certainly like frost on the ground. Like the grass in the bits that are grassy was kind of frozen. The bits that were like in the forest, like the mud on the ground was still soft, so it wasn't like. I guess because it was sunny and warm during the day, the frost would just melt after like an hour of the sun coming up.
Yeah. So how were you running the course? Like, were you consistent with where you ran and where you walked, or how did you figure out how you were going to run the Rasselbock course?
Yeah, so pretty much trying to be consistent. I mean, so that was the first time I'd been there at the course. Julie ran the race last year, 2024. I wasn't there. I was at home. She was there by herself, self-crewed. So, I mean, I had some idea what to expect. I'd seen the course, plotted on Strava, so I kind of knew roughly how much elevation there was. Um, and it looked like a course that you could just keep a consistent pace on. So for me, that normally it's about 12 and a half minute mile pace on a Rasselbock course. It seems because of the wiggly bits, everybody's GPS reads a little bit short. So I was able to go to 13-minute mile pace and still get around in the correct time. So basically, what I tend to do is just use the terrain. If it's downhill, I'll tend to run it. If it's uphill, I'll tend to walk it, and then you just on my watch, I have have it lapping every mile, so I know if I'm heading for 13-minute mile target pace, if I'm ahead of it, if I'm behind it. But so I have a rough idea. I'm not like when I get to that tree, I'm going to walk, but I'll know this section. I should probably put a walk in here. If I'm certainly like on the first day, there was like 160 something runners, so there was like loads of people around. So partly I'm talking to people during the single track section. Sometimes you get bottlenecked behind people. So yeah, just adjusting my pace a little bit to keep to that consistent 13 minutes mile.
Yeah, sure. So it's the kind of
The
course.
other thing that's quite nice, I was going to say at the end of mile 3 as well, there's quite a nice run, or across the top of mile 3 and into mile 4, there's quite a nice flat and downhill runnable section. So if you find for whatever reason you're kind of behind schedule, it's quite easy to make it up in the second half of the loop.
Okay.
So yeah, I, again, I did look at my like overall lap paces at the end. I didn't look at my like mile splits yet, but I think I was pretty consistent throughout.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It looks like a really nice course. It looks perfect, really, just from watching the videos and looking at the photos.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like compared to Thetford, I think it has a little bit more elevation in it, but it's not a hilly course by any stretch of the imagination.
Mm.
Um, and I like the fact that it had like the trail section. I mean, that kind of like single track forest floor trail. That's like if there was one surface I could choose to run on that I would never run on anything else in my life, it would
Yeah,
be that. So I really enjoyed that section of it. And the rest of it's just pretty varied. Because I was a bit worried like beforehand that if you're just running on forest roads, there's tall pine trees everywhere. Like it's just going to be a bit of a bore fest. But in actual fact, like it was quite varied. There's no, I mean, I think the longest bit, which is like a long straight, is probably about half a mile long. Um, so yeah, it was a nice course, and I was never bored by it.
yeah, yeah. So the field was strong. Like there was a few UK team members running, and I mean there was some runners who weren't in the UK team, like who were new to the format, like Lizzie Gatherer, that your assist. I mean, I heard that she was aiming to break the female UK record. So leading in, I mean, you must have been expecting the race to go for a pretty long time.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think those, as you say, there was a few names from the UK team, that we'd kind of been in touch beforehand. I think at this stage, early on in the qualifying cycle for the 2026 UK team, um, everybody's wanting to post big totals, get on the at-large list. Silver tickets that will come next year, so nobody's worried about that. So we'd all kind of been in touch a bit and gone, well, actually, what we want here is, to go a long way. Let's just keep an eye out for each other, support each other as best as we can. And then, obviously, yeah, there was a few other people who, hadn't been on the UK team before, didn't have, PBs in the 40 plus. Lizzie was one of those. I guess kind of came into it as a bit of a dark horse. And yeah, I mean, she'd put her name out there and said she wanted to go after Sarah Perry's record. I mean, obviously, as it transpired, I mean, she stopped at 50. But clearly she's a capable runner, and I'm pretty sure she'll go further than that in future, and maybe go after that women's record as well.
Yeah, for sure. And had you set any personal goals? Like, were you determined to just keep on going till you couldn't go any further, or any targets, or just you just wanted to be the last one standing?
I mean, so the way I'd kind of thought about it, is I had a list of let's say achievements that I could pass on the way, like milestones on the way. So for me, the first thing was, can I prove to myself that I can get through the second night? Because that was where I'd failed before.
Mm.
And then if I could get through the second night, could I get to 48 yards? Because that's 2 days, 200 miles is a big milestone. I'd never done that distance before. Then, as it happens, shortly after that, the Scottish record was at 49 yards. So that was set by Thomas Hugon on the UK team in October. So again, I thought, well, if I could get to 48, push on a few more yards, I could get the Scottish record. That would be a nice thing to have. But there wasn't really if I got this far, I'd want to stop, sort of thing.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm quite like competitively driven person. So, whatever happened, if I was able to get up to the high 40s into the 50s, for sure there was only going to be a few people probably around at that point. So at that point in my head, I was expecting it to become a race. And in the end, I think the third place runner maybe dropped out around 42, 43, something like that. So I think in the end, it was down to myself and Lizzie for the last 8 laps, 7 or 8 laps, something like that. And we just kind of kept our own strategies. I think, I kind of, I think she was actually struggling a bit once it got down to 2 and she was on her own. But I wasn't really that aware of that at the time. I was just kind of focused on doing what I was doing. And then it was a bit of a surprise for me actually on that yard 51. I was ahead of her on the loop, and she pulled out behind me. I did find out about it halfway around the loop because one of the marshals had got a radio call from HQ to say that she'd dropped. So I kind of knew at that point, but up to that point, I was prepared for the race to go on for, I don't know, another 10, 20 more laps. I felt great. I was still hitting the paces I wanted to hit. You expect everything to feel a bit stiff and sore when you do 200 miles, but I kind of like got to the point on the first day, like 50 miles in, where your feet are a bit sore, your legs are a bit sore, you're a bit tired, but then it never seemed to get any worse than that. So like in my head, everything was great. I could have just kept going. And as it happened, the assist went to 50 and I got 51.
Yeah. Now, I saw that you did run a pretty fast final loop, so I thought you must have known it was going to be your last one. So when you found out, did you just go for broke?
Yeah, pretty much. The way it kind of worked, the way it kind of happened was, on that loop 51. So normally I was kind of the way I'd start the loop, I'd normally walk out of the corral just to get everything moving again. Lizzie tended to run out of the corral, so she would be ahead of me on the first bit of the loop, and then I'd tend to pass her somewhere on the loop. And on that yard 51, I kind of noticed that she was going like really slow at the start. So I kind of ran off a bit. And that was about the only time really that I actually tried to kind of play any kind of mind games at all. I just thought I'll run the first mile and kind of because basically it's about probably a third of a mile and then a big long gravel trail. I thought, okay, if I can get out of sight by the time she gets to the trail, maybe that would be a good little game to play. But within the idea that I was going to slow down again because the race could go on for forever, and I didn't want to tire myself out. So I was then walking again, when I got to mile 2, I was pretty much back on my average pace. And it was at that point, about halfway round, that the marshal told me that she dropped. And the thing with the backyard, because you don't know how long it's going to last, you're always trying to be as efficient as you can. You're conserving energy because you want to go for as long as you can. And then all of a sudden, when someone tells you, this is it, you only have 2 and a bit more miles to do, I was like, yes, right. Just like, you can burn all your matches. You don't have anything to hold back. And you can actually, it's great fun, right? So that's the 3rd backyard that I've won. And on all of them, I've either found out partway through the last loop that the runners turned back, or on one case, the assist like shook my hand in the corral and I got to do the whole loop as a solo loop. And like that feeling where you like, one, that you've won, which is a great feeling, but you also know that you don't have to hold anything back. You're done at the end of this loop. And I think I spoke to a couple other people who like found the last loop really stressful because they're like, the only thing that can happen here is I can get lost or I can fall over and hurt myself. I can screw this up. So I guess in some sense, like running, it just like you get this big adrenaline rush. And you can just really enjoy it. So it was pretty cool experience.
Yeah. So is it correct that you were running without any crew until Julie dropped?
Yeah, that's right. So we planned to do the event kind of self-crewed or like crewing each other effectively, so that like and this is what we did during the first night. As I said, when I came back and had a long nap, she would come back and then wake me up. And there was she didn't sleep much at all in the first night, which is normal for her. But if she wanted to shut her eyes, I'd keep an eye on her, kind of thing. Um, that was the idea. How long that strategy is sustainable for, don't know, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, as it transpired, she dropped in the early 30s, and she switched straight on to crewing me, which is pretty wild considering she'd been awake for a day and a half and done 150 miles or whatever it was. And yeah, then she said like she a switch flicked in her head, and she's like, okay, my race is over. Now I'm supporting Iain. And for me, that was it was great to have have her like fully supporting as well. Just meant I could be like that much more efficient during the second night. So yeah, made a huge difference for me.
Yeah. Now, physically, the way you felt during the race, it sounds like you didn't have any issues, but was it the best you'd felt physically in a backyard ultra?
I think probably yes. I mean, certainly the fact that I was able to get a distance PB and still feel great at the end of it. I was absolutely, in good shape. I mean, I wouldn't say coming into it that I was. I mean, I felt like I'd had good training. I wouldn't have necessarily said I was in like the form of my life or anything like that. But I definitely say I was, 95% of at my best. I mean, I think sometimes like just I would say there's been two or three races I've done in my life where like somehow like a performance that I didn't necessarily expect has kind of come up and surprised me. Or I have surprised myself. You always want to go into races confident, and if you've had a good preparation that you should have a good race. But you never really quite know how you're going to feel on the day. But I think with backyards as well, like it's so much of a tightly coupled physical mental thing that if you're like I mean, it was funny because like I was in the corral at every lap, kind of like ready to go. Like I never like felt like I wanted to quit. Like I was always keen to go out for another lap. And Julie said to me afterwards, some people were asking her like, is he playing mind games here? Is he putting a front on? And she was like, no, he's genuinely having the time of his life out there. And I absolutely was. So I think like when you're like in a massive like positive mindset, then that makes all the physical stuff. I mean, you can't separate how much something hurts from how much you feel it hurts because it's a perception thing. Yeah. But definitely, like if you're in a positive mindset, then everything hurts less and you perform better. So, for whatever set of reasons, I was just in like this massive virtuous cycle of everything working well in the day. And like I said, I just felt like I could have run forever.
Yeah, unreal. So there were nothing physical came up that you needed to deal with, like no blisters or anything like that?
I mean, no, only really minor stuff. I mean, I think at one point, I mean, I'd stopped and put some tape on the bottom of both the soles of my feet at one point, just because they were starting to feel a bit, a bit kind of bruised or just a bit worn. And then I got a couple of small blisters, like just at the base of my toes, like between the toes and the ball of the foot, which again, I just put some tape on. But none of them were like painful enough that it was affecting like my running gait or anything like that. It was just because I was prepared to go a long way. As soon as you feel a niggle, you do something about it, to limit the damage. So it was that like, yeah, as I said, everything felt like it was going right. When I felt like I had a niggle, I was able to solve it. By a day and a half, my knees were a bit sore. That's kind of normal. Put some like deep heat on them. They feel great again. When I was tired, I slept. I felt great again. So like, it was almost like every little problem that would come up, there was a solution for it that worked, and nothing ever became like a big problem that ever would threaten to like end my race or slow me down.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you ran the perfect race. Like, did you have any mental um, like downtime at all?
I mean, the only bit of the race I would say for me that was like difficult was so on the set it was the second afternoon, which was when so it was when Julie was actually starting to struggle. So she was having a really hard time. Um, she was not feeling it. Feeling physically really, you know, having a hard time. With sore knees and stuff, and just feeling emotionally drained, mentally drained, and I was kind of trying to, we were running that part of the race together, and I was trying to kind of keep her going, and I find that really hard because one, I wasn't really able to help her with it, and actually, to some extent, having me around her, she was finding that was because I was having such a great time. By comparison, she was finding that like quite, I don't know if pressure is the right word, but it was having a negative effect on her. So at some point in the afternoon, we actually had a conversation. She said, "Okay, you go off and run on ahead for a bit. I'm going to slow down a bit. You know, just leave me to have some headspace myself. Let me try and sort myself out." And she ran a bit by herself. She ran a bit with some of our other friends who were there as well. Um, and she did pick herself up for a few laps after that. But then eventually she did, pull the plug. And that bit, I guess it was sort of 3 or 4 hours where she was really struggling, and I was trying to help her but couldn't. That was the only bit that for me was a bit of a kind of mental downer on the race. And as I said, once she had dropped, um, so she pulled out, like as in, I think she got to about mile one and then turned back, and I was ahead of her on the loop, so I had no idea that she had actually dropped. I mean, I knew she was struggling and potentially thinking about it.
Mm.
Um, but then when I got to the end of the loop, I saw that she was already sitting in the runner's marquee. So that was the only point I knew that she'd quit. And I was really worried that she'd be like, in a complete mess and really annoyed with herself or just distraught about it. But she'd kind of processed that already in the last half an hour before I turned up. And she was, like I said, this switch had flicked and she was in crew mode. She was totally happy with her decision to quit. And she was in full let's support Iain mode.
Yeah.
So when I saw her, she was like, we had a hug. Sorry, your race is over. She's like, right, now we're going to get you to the end. So that kind of just took, from what was an afternoon that was difficult for me, all of a sudden then just became a positive again. And I was like back into my good headspace and cracking on with that second night.
Yeah, and I mean, I can imagine it would have made it a lot easier as well, having her crewing for you rather than crewing yourself as well.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, like when you've got, say 6 or 7 minutes at the end of the loop, if you're self crewing or crewing each other, you spend a couple of minutes faffing around, getting your food, whatever you need to do. If you've got to sort out your socks or shoes or whatever, that takes some time. By the time she was crewing me, it was like I'd come in at the end of the lap. I mean, that second night, I was taking some gels and stuff out on the loop. So I was like, I'd literally dump a couple of gel wrappers on her, tell her, she'd say, "What do you want this loop?" I say, "Fine, I'll have another gel to take with me or whatever it is." And literally 30 seconds after I crossed the line, I'd be on the chair asleep,
Yeah.
knowing that she was going to wake me up with like 90 seconds to go. And it just, it doesn't sound like much, but the difference of being having like 3 or 4 minutes of rest versus 5.5, 6 minutes of rest is a big difference at that stage in the race. And that's the difference having a crew makes.
Yeah, definitely. So now you've broken 50 yards, especially doing it as finishing as the last one standing. Do you feel like you've kind of like unlocked a door that's going to like continue taking you to another level in backyard ultras?
Well, I hope so. Yes. I mean, I think, like I said, the getting through the second night thing was let's say a bit of a monkey on my back. I think I've kind of got over that now. I'm not saying, every backyard I do, I'm going to do 48 plus, right? That's not the reality of it. But I definitely think I've got the ability to replicate that, and I've got, stuff left in the tank that I could have gone further on the day if somebody had gone with me. So, yeah, I mean, definitely got aspirations to go further. I mean, I think the races that I've got, like the backyard races I've got lined up this year, um, neither of them are particularly conducive courses to super long yards. Um, but hopefully, I mean, maybe the 51 will be enough to put me on the UK team off the at-large list, or maybe I'll end up going for a silver ticket race or something next year. But hopefully, if I can, I definitely want to qualify for the UK team in 2026, and I think that race would definitely be a chance to go longer than 50 for sure.
The what other backyard ultras do you have planned for the year?
Yeah, so I've got two races booked. So July is the Highlander backyard. So that's kind of like that's basically my local race. It's about 40 minutes drive from where we live in the middle of Perthshire. So I've never run it before. Although I've walked around the course. So I went there to spectate last year. And so that one is, so I mentioned before, in the UK, we have this Four Nations Championship, which is like a mini team race between Scotland, England, Ireland, and Wales. So that race is every year a different country hosts it. So this year it's going to be run in parallel to the Highlander backyard. So so both me and Julie are on Team Scotland. So we'll be going there to to do that race. It's a fairly hilly course. The course record there, I think, is 42 yards. Yeah. So with a few good runners on the national teams and maybe from the general entrance, it certainly could go further than 42. But I don't think it's going to produce a 50 or 60 yards. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay. So that's July. Weather should be good. Lots of daylight. Well, you never can tell. It's Scotland. Even in the summer, the weather might be terrible. Yeah. So that's the first one. And then I'm going back to God's Own Backyard in November. So that course, I'd say the course itself is not that hard. I mean, it has a different day and night loop, and the night loop is essentially pancake flat. But it's in November. You get like 18 hours of darkness, and it's on a canal. And generally, what happens is during the night, like a kind of mist or fog kind of lies on the canal because the water is really cold. So you basically have like 18 hours of like sensory deprivation torture, where all you can see is like your head torch and like 2 meters of fog in front of you. So again, that one, the course record is 42 as well, I think. So I previously had the course record there from when I won it a few years ago. So that was the motivation to go back there and see if I can get the crown back. So I got a bit of motivation there. But again, I think because of the time of year and potentially being cold and a bit unpleasant at night, I'm not sure that one's going to go super long. So I think I might have to wait until 2026, right, okay, either for like the team champs or something else to do a super long race.
Yeah. Did you have? You're not doing Suffolk then?
I'm not. Julie is. So so she'll have a chance to put one over on me and go beyond 51. And if I think she's in good shape. She's also recovered well from Rasselbox. So and she's got somebody to crew her for that race as well. So I'm not able to go down for that one. But so maybe by the end of the year she'll have the family bragging rights again and have extended her PB.
Yeah. So the result at Rasselbock, I mean, I think it might have only been the second time in the UK 50 has been eclipsed at a course other than Suffolk. I think it's the first time other than Suffolk 50 has been broken. So it seems like things are like a leveling up over there. And there's still a lot of time till the Sat Champs next year in October. So what's the plan to make sure you make the team? Like you kind of, yeah. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, so the Rasselbach was a bronze ticket event, so
Mm,
I can get a run at a silver if I want one. Um, so I mean, I think I mean I'm going to keep an eye on the how things qualify, and obviously Suffolk will certainly shake up things on the at large list. I would imagine.
mm,
Um, there's also there's a second Rasselbach event at Hardwick Hall, so it's a different new course but run by the same people in the autumn sometime as well. So there's again a few races that can produce long distances. So, but I mean, I think last year to qualify for the UK team, I think at the bottom of the at large list it was about 37 yards, something like that, 38. So I hope 51 might be enough to scrape me in on the at large list, anyways. But let's say by the end of this year, we'll kind of know where things stand. We'll be going into the silver ticket year. I might pick, one of the silver ticket events to target. But yeah, haven't really planned that out yet. So, but
mm.
absolutely, I want to qualify and see how things look by the end of this year and work out how to do that.
Yeah. Now I saw that there are four silver ticket races over there. Is there one in each? Is there one in Wales, one in Scotland, one in the England, and one in Ireland? Is that how it works? Or
Uh, No, not quite. I mean, they are so the silver ticket races. They're kind of selected to be geographically spread around, but there's not one in Scotland this year. Sorry, in the coming cycle. Um, Highlander Backyard was a silver ticket in the last cycle, but yeah, they've changed around this year. So I don't remember off the top of my head exactly what the four were.
mm,
Um, again, that was kind of in my head, that was like a problem for next year, and I haven't really planned that
yeah,
far ahead yet. So,
yeah,
but yeah, there's a mixture of some of the harder courses and some easier ones as well. So
yeah. Now you mentioned before that you've got that you have set some goals for 2025 and they're on your blog. But well, what are those goals?
yeah, so I mean, the real big one for me was getting over that 200-mile barrier. That was a big thing that I really wanted to do, and so it's great to kind of tick that off on the in the first race of the year. Um, I mean, the other two backyards I mentioned, I've got my own, specific reasons for running those. The Team Scotland and the going after the God's Own course record.
Mm,
Outside of backyards as well, I've got two big point-to-point races lined up. So I'm going to do the Cape Wrath Ultra, which is it's a 250-mile race, but it's an 8-day stage race. So you
yeah,
have like a camp each night. So that's something totally new for me, and I'm super excited about that. As I said earlier, I get a huge kick out of like just exploring different parts of the country, and in Scotland we have what's a network called Scotland's Great Trails. So there's about 20 of these kind of long distance paths, and I've probably done about maybe 4 or 5 of them by now. So I'm kind of gradually trying to do them all, either through races or like through just solo expeditions or whatever. So Cape Wrath Ultra is one of the targets for this year, and then also the race across Scotland, which is the Southern Upland Way. So that's a 215-mile continuous race. So those are like my kind of two big goals for outside of backyards as well.
yeah, awesome. Now I understand Cape Wrath is maybe only a week or so before Suffolk. So if you did do Cape Wrath, you probably wouldn't have been able to do Suffolk anyway, even if you were available.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was it. So Cape Wrath has been on the bucket list for a couple of years. Um, it's I mean, it's very expensive as a race. I mean, you get what you pay for. The logistics are phenomenal for that race. Um, So actually 2 years ago, I volunteered on the event crew, so you can get credit to go in and run the event the following year. And then last year, I got injured in March. So then the Cape Wrath is in May. So then I pulled out of it last year and went back and volunteered for a second year. So that was like pretty much the first thing that was in the calendar for this year, and then the backyards have fitted in around it as well.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, I mean, so Suffolk was never like a reasonable option for me this year.
Yeah,
And it's a big when you're thinking about doing a backyard you're gonna run for maybe 3, maybe more days, which is kind of like kind of the goal. And then to go to Suffolk, it's down in the south of England, so for us it's like a whole day of traveling, and then each way, and then probably you're going to need at least a day to recover before you can think about traveling home. So all of a sudden it's like taking a whole week out of your schedule. And between work and family as well, we've got 4 kids, 3 of whom are still at home. So again, like for Rasselbach, my parents came up and stayed at our house with the kids. And that was, I think we were away from home 5 days in total between the travel and the race. So it's not easy to fit these big races in. So Suffolk was never an option for me this year, really.
Yeah, sure. I saw. I remember Stephen Cousins did Cape Wrath last year, and he was absolutely raving about how great it was.
Yeah, so he was on the event team in 2023, the first year I was on the event team, and then he ran it as a competitor in 2024 when I was on the event team for the second time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've seen him in both roles on that one. Yeah. And he did a nice video diary of it, which was quite interesting because obviously I'm doing my my research and my reconnaissance. So there's quite a few people that have done good videos of it, and his one was interesting as well.
Yeah. So Iain, I like asking my guests at the end of the podcast for their 3 backyard ultra tips. What are your 3 backyard ultra tips?
Okay. So first one is pacing. In particular, like be prepared to walk as much as you can, and kind of related to that, train for it as well. So I mean, I think a lot of people appreciate that they can get away with walking a lot in backyards, and they expect to. But as runners, when we train, we like to go running.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to go long in a backyard, it's worth training your walking. It's one of the things that both me and Julie do, and people always comment on it at races, that at the points when we were walking, I mean, we've actually in training, we can actually do a backyard loop in an hour just walking. I mean, couldn't sustain it forever, and you're probably coming in at like 58 minutes or something like that, which is not great strategy. But to be able to walk at that pace just means for like the first day, you're probably only running like 20% of the loop or less. And I think it makes you really efficient, but only if you train it, because if you don't train that and you're going to walk for 20 hours out of the day, then you're going to knacker all your hip flexors and stuff. So I'd say that practice the walking and then pick a pace that works for you. But that's my view. I mean, I know there's plenty of other runners who run around and do their loops in 40 something minutes, and I mean, like at Suffolk last year, I think it was it Oriol or one of the other guys that went? No, it was the Polish guy. His name I forget. Went a long way, and he was banging out 40 something minute laps the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's not the only strategy, but that's my personal advice and from my experience. So that'd be kind of tip number 1. Tip number 2, get a crew. I mean, for sure you can probably do 24, 36 hours, maybe even to the 40s, self-crewed, but at some point that strategy is going to run out of steam. I mean, I did practice on my overnight practice run to check that I could wake myself up with my wristwatch alarm. But I wouldn't want to rely on it in a race. It's fine to do in a practice,
Yeah.
it'd be horrific to like be on the first night having a nap and miss the bell because you were asleep in your chair. So having a crew totally puts that fear to bed. So that would be probably number two. And I think number three is about having a range of different goals. I mean, everybody's different, but for me, just going, okay, now I need to do another 3 hours and I'm going to get to this milestone, and another 3 hours, I'm going to get to this milestone. But always having a next one, because that was the thing I learned from the first backyard. In my head, I had one goal, which is to do 24 hours. And then after that, I had nothing else to run for. And I wasn't close enough to the front to be fighting for the win. So I was like, right, okay, time to quit.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people that come in, it's not that they quit as soon as they meet their goal, but they quit like one or two loops after they've met their goal. Which if that's fine and that's what you want to achieve, great. But if you want to go on for super long yards, you've got to have lots of things to be laid out in front of you to keep you going.
Yeah, very
So
good.
that's my three.
Yeah, awesome. With the first tip, the pace, walking and running in a backyard ultra, have you ever done a backyard ultra where you just run depending on the time? Like, for example, run for 3 minutes, walk for seven, and just done that for the whole backyard ultra?
Not really. Like, I mean, I guess that's like what most people know as jeffing. So, like the setting specific 5 minute, 3 minute, or whatever it is. I tend to do it based on the terrain. So most of the backyards, even if they're pretty well flat, they're going to have some uphill, some downhill, and that kind of guides where you run, where you walk. Although an interesting thing that we discussed a bit during the this is a kind of tip that came from John Stalker during the Satellite Champs race. He said, the natural thing is to run on the gradual downhills and to walk on the uphills. But when your legs get really tired after being going for a few days, one thing that can really help is actually just to break that up, walk the downhills, run the uphills. And yes, it's probably more, objectively, it's like more difficult, higher energy expenditure, but it gives your muscles some different movement patterns and can just kind of, maybe reset or just give your body a bit of a break. So again, that's something I did a little bit of at Rasselbach, actually walked some of the downhills. Not sure I ever got to the point where I was wanting to run uphill, but the idea is there.
Yeah, very good. Well, congratulations on your performance at Rasselbach. Like, I mean, it was a great performance, and I've got no doubt that you can go further than that as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing what else you can do, and I'm pretty sure that 51 will get you into the team. But if it doesn't, I mean, I reckon you'll make the team by going further than that anyway.
Well, that's the hope. Yeah, absolutely. I think there's more to come, and hopefully I can stay injury free and deliver a big race at some point.
Yeah, and I mean, ultimately, like, do you ever hope to go to bigs or anything like that?
I mean, I'd love to go to bigs. It would be really cool. I mean, from what I remember, chatting to John about it on the race, just asking me what's it like, and I've obviously seen some pictures and the footage and stuff from there. The trail section, sounds like it's pretty gnarly, which is like totally up my street, and I think I'd really enjoy it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I absolutely would love to go. And I mean, outside of backyards, I've always had, it's not really a bucket list; it's more like a pipe dream. But to get to Barkley, so all you have to do if you want to get to Barkley, right? You just have to get to bigs and then win bigs. So that's how hard can it be? So that's the pipe dream, but you might as well dream big.
Yeah, that's unreal. Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks heaps for coming on, Iain. Great to meet you, and and we'll stay in touch as well. All the best in the future.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's been fun.